Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Round 7 here at Grand Prix Denver. Heavy Sports joined today by Luis Scott Vargas, and here we have Eric Froelich versus Hao Sheng Huang. It's going to be black-green Delirium versus white-blue Humans. So, Huang missing a one-drop. How important are one-drops in his deck?
Looks like he's just got the 8 of Town Gossip Monger and Thraben Inspector. So yes, he would like to start
Still
with a one drop,
bad, right?
but it's not critical. Like the lower to curve version that we saw in the last format, if it would mulligan a hand without a one drop, whereas this version of Blue-White Humans, I think there are hands that, like such as this one, that not having a one drop is not the end of the world.
I feel like the old deck, if you didn't have a one drop, a lot of times you just couldn't even keep that hand.
No, it would not even be close.
So just a couple of swamps here for Eric.
You're representing Grasp of Darkness here, so there's a pretty decent chance that Huang might play a creature and then not attack with Smuggler's Copter if he fears Grasp, especially if the creature he plays is lower value. If he plays like a Thalia, Heretic Cathar, then he's a lot more incentive to attack.
This is a bit of a clunky start, so always watching from Huang, but no creatures to really be attacking here.
Well, the good thing about this is that Eric didn't do anything on turn 2, so he didn't get a Grimflare into play. And so far, if Huang doesn't play creatures, if he just develops his board without playing creatures, it actually strands those 2 swamps untapped where, yeah, Eric might have Grasp in hand, but he's not able to spend that mana.
Eric playing a Forest and a Vessel in Nascency, but unfortunately cannot activate the Vessel, and Eric's mana base punishing him a little bit here.
And when you play 7 Forest and 7 Swamp, which is a necessity in this format, sometimes you'll draw the wrong mix and not be able to play all your spells. Though Eric may have led Swamp just to keep Grasp up, in which case he's paying a price there too.
Fair enough. Thraben Inspector coming down for Huang. Bringing a clue also.
And now this is where Huang has to decide, do you attack with Smuggler's Copter? And I'm not surprised to see that he didn't.
Yeah, so he declines that, and he's already put him on Grasp of Darkness basically the entire game. So continuing to respect that. At what point do you just have to jam?
Basically, when Eric can use his mana elsewise, or when you give him too many other targets, then you have incentive to start attacking. If Huang's next turn is play 2 creatures, even if he doesn't attack with Copter, Eric still just gets to use Grasp, whereas Eric's not grasping a Thraben Inspector, and if he does, Huang is pretty happy about that.
Yeah.
So the other wrinkle is that Huang has, it looks like 2 Revolutionary Rebuffs in hand. So there are turns where you might be able to set it up so that Revolutionary Rebuff could counter Grasp, even though that's not true right now.
Town Gossip Monger coming down for Huang. Card we haven't seen very much of this weekend in the feature match.
No, it's a card that was heavily played, one rotation ago, but the advent of vehicles has kind of driven the lower curve mono white decks out of the format.
All right, so it looks like the Gossip Monger is hopping into that Smuggler's Copter. Now it's the moment of truth. Let's see if that Grasp of Darkness will be coming in.
And Eric may have Murder and Grasp, in which case he has to decide if there's a disadvantage to casting Grasp. Like, is there a way that Huang can punish him for casting it?
Yeah, but he's going to go ahead and fire it off. And down goes that Copter. Yeah, the Thraben Inspector does manage to pick in there for 2. And Eric cracking that Vessel at the end of the turn. Let's see what he finds.
A land
Yep.
of some variety.
Yeah, and it looks like he's picking that Hissing Quagmire. The rest go to the graveyard. We're going to see an untap.
And so Eric right now has sorceries, enchantments, instants, and lands, so he does have Delirium. So if he had an Ishkanah, he would be able to slam Ishkanah and be rewarded with a brood of spiders.
All right, so it looks like it's a Pilgrim's Eye. Getting him a Forest. He's going to go ahead and tap that for the Vessel and play like Hissing Quagmire this turn. And finally, he has access to both his colors in plentiful manner.
So Eric spent some turns setting up here. He cracked a Vessel, he played a Pilgrim's Eye, played another Vessel. That's a lot of actions that don't really impact the board that much. He just gets a 1/1 out of the deal. But like you mentioned, it fixes Eric's mana. He's got basically perfect mana at this point, and it also means that he's got Delirium, so a lot of his cards are on when they weren't on previously.
And always watching with a nice synergy with Town Gossip Monger. Both creatures get to attack, but then he also gets to tap it and reverse it with the Thraben Inspector. instead of having to take a turn off usually as you would.
And Huang's really missing blue mana here. He's got 3 islands and 8 blue dual lands, so he's unfortunately not drawn any of them, which leaves him with a bunch of revolutionary rebuffs that are losing value very quickly. Like, imagine if you had a rebuff here to counter Ishkana.
It'd be great. I mean, it's very likely that Eric wouldn't necessarily be playing into it, but he just hasn't had access to it the entire game. Instead, the Traverse, the Ulvenwald does get that Ishkana, and in come all the spiders as well. An entire family. So Stasis Snare gets to take care of that Ishkana, but...
Actually, you know, Huang has Declaration and Stone in hand, so he actually is going to be able to deal with the tokens if he so chooses.
All right, yeah, so he's stoning all the spiders to death. And Eric doesn't even get to get any clues here. Incoming with the other creatures. And a follow-up of another Thraben Inspector, bringing also another clue. Here you see the backside, the Incited Rabble. They look angry.
It is pretty aggro on the backside. It has to attack every turn, and you can pump it. So late game, it's a good mana sink.
Okay, so Eric is playing the version with Mind Rack Demons. Can you tell us a little bit about his version of the deck, actually?
So it is on the controlling side in the sense that it does have Emrakul, Grapple, Vessel of Nascency. So we're not talking the Smuggler's Copter version that Eric actually played to a good finish at Pro Tour Kaladesh. On the other hand, it does have 3 Mind Rack Demons and 2 Tireless Trackers along with those Grimflayers. So Eric is very capable of pressuring opponents, and has fewer removal spells as a result.
There you see Mind Rack Demon. Also Grimflayer coming down for Eric.
Yeah, that was a good turn for him. He put a 4/4 and a 4/5 onto the board, which currently is big enough to keep Wong from attacking.
The Incited Rebel doesn't really have a choice.
No, that one has to get in there.
Mind Rack Demon jumping in front. And it is dead. Let's see if Wong wants to follow up with clue. He's drawn a Reflector Mage and still no blue mana.
Wong has now 4 blue spells in his hand. So at this point, even if he draws blue mana, he'll be very slow to deploy them. The Revolutionary rebuffs are losing value. And, a single Reflector Mage is not enough to really get Eric's board to the point where Wong can really start attacking. So I'd say Eric is in great shape here.
The Last Hope also making an appearance. Targeting that Thraben Inspector. That's why it's upside down now.
Maybe it's upside down because Eric wants to read it to verify what the card does.
I'm sure that's what's going on.
There's a number of reasons why that is unlikely to be the case.
All right, Thalia's Lieutenant coming in and granting her blessing to all these humans. How helpful is this Lieutenant on this board?
It gives Wong more of a chance than he had before because it's one of his more powerful cards. That represented 5/5 worth of stats with the 3 counters, and it's a 2/2 base because of always watching. And drawing multiple lieutenants is one way to get his creatures big enough to start attacking in. That said, I still think Eric has access to all the mana he needs, and his deck is much more powerful once it gets rolling.
All right, so Liliana ticking down. Let's see what Eric wants to get back. It's another Ishkana. And here she makes an appearance, bringing back another 3 spiders.
It might get to the point where Eric actually can start attacking with Mind Rack Demon.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he's doing, actually.
To be clear, he can't hear me. Despite it being a really good play and very well predicted.
In comes Pilgrim's Eye, too. Oh, no, it's actually hanging back.
No, I didn't predict that one, so he didn't do it.
All right. And even that Thalia's Lieutenant not looking so great against all this. Eric's board is very impressive.
Right now, the Grimflayers are big enough to block all of Wong's creatures. Even he noticed that Wong is not flipping the Town Gossipmonger because he does not want it to be forced to attack.
Oh, what a dagger. He finds the blue mana, but it actually comes into play tapped.
Yeah, there is a drawback to running Port Town, even in a deck with, what, 11 planes and 4 Prairie Streams?
Well, just how he's been constrained on mana the entire game is part of the thing, too. And he's been constrained on blue. All right, so this time Pilgrim's Eye and the Mindwreck Demon both getting in.
And it looks like Eric's content to finish the game between these attacks, and he could even activate Ishkanah if he has nothing better to do.
No, he wants to add another Mindwreck Demon to the board.
And he's threatening lethal next turn. 9 in the air plus an Ishkanah activation with the ability to keep Murder up if he wants.
I feel like so many times we've seen that the Ishkanah activation is almost certainly going to take down the game, and then it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, it just doesn't quite get there. It's,
yeah.
The threat of activation is more than the actual activation itself.
All right, so Huang now with blue mana available. Let's see what he can do.
Not a lot. He can Reflector Mage one of the Mind Rack Demons, which means that he doesn't die immediately, but it's still just not the path towards winning the game, unfortunately.
All right, Reflector Mage bouncing back that demon. And Murder takes down the Lieutenant.
Eric might even be able to start attacking with Grim Flares if he wants to get really aggressive here.
We're going to see a draw.
Eric's also got to be very close to casting Emrakul, especially given that Noxious Gearhulk as an artifact. So if Eric is able to find an Emrakul, he could also do that. Not that I think he needs it this particular game.
Has he milled one? He has a grapple with a pass in the grave.
I haven't seen an Emrakul get milled.
Excuse me. Yeah. All right, so once again, the Demon and the Pilgrim's Eye continue to get in. Liliana taking down once more, getting the Noxious Gearhulk back. All right.
Eric, respecting the fact that he's at 8, and maybe Wong has like some way of giving a bunch of all his creatures like, I don't even, flying doesn't even work, unblockable in some way.
You're in those situations where you just don't want to die to nonsense, right? You're just
Mountain
so far
Magmatic
ahead.
Chasm.
Oh my God.
Wong would kill for a Magmatic Chasm right now. That would be great.
We haven't gotten to see that piece of technology. For anybody who wasn't here when we talked about it earlier, what exactly were you talking about with Magmatic Chasm?
Basically, some of the Mardu and Red-White Vehicles players have Magmatic Chasm in their sideboard. That's 1 in a red. Creatures without flying can't block this turn. And it's a way to answer Ishkanah or boards like this.
And Eric takes the first game here between him and Hao Shang-Huan. There you see Magmatic Chasm over on the right.
Oh, yeah, but I already know what it does.
Yes,
I just said it.
Yes, you do. Is this at all like you predicted the first game would be?
It's interesting because Huang has the capability of just running over Eric, especially if he has like double 1-drop or 1-drop, 2-drop into Rebuff or Reflector Mage. But he got a slow enough start, and Eric was able to land an Ishkanah, which is why the card Revolutionary Rebuff is like essentially as close to counter-target Spider as you can get in this format. So it is what you're looking for against decks with Ishkanah.
In the meantime, let's take a peek over and see what's going on between Neil Oliver and Rob Pisano.
And we are clarified, this is a different match, despite the presence of a Black-Green Delirium deck with beta lands facing down a blue-white deck.
Oh, you really pay attention to the lands, huh? Not giving anybody a pass. All right, so we're seeing a Marvel activation. Did Neil find anything interesting? Oh, he has an Ulamog in hand.
Yeah, Neil's got a pretty sweet brew here.
Yeah, can you tell us about it?
It's a black-green Marvel. So it's essentially like if you took a black-green deck and a Marvel deck and kind of jammed them together and then just took out some of the cards. he's got Aetherworks Marvel, he's got Vessel, he's got Emrakul and Ulamog, but he also has a lot of the black-green cards like Grasp of Darkness and Ishkanah and Tireless Tracker and Noxious Gearhulk, including one Demon of Dark Schemes.
Jeez. Going deep. What about Rob's deck, on the other hand?
Rob is playing a more traditional version of blue-white Flash, and he's getting to the point where Neil's engine is just running, and Rob doesn't seem like he's got a whole lot of answers to it. So currently this board is pretty well jammed up, and even though Rob has a Gideon, I still think that the person with Aetherworks Marvel in play is going to have an edge there, because that just goes over the top of Gideon so well.
Since this is a more traditional blue-white Flash sort of deck, how do you think this matchup goes here as opposed to the previous one, which was definitely a lot more aggressive?
It's tricky. I think that the aggressive deck is actually slightly better in the matchup than the blue-white flash deck because the black-green decks are kind of built to minimize a lot of blue-white flash's best cards like Spell Queller and Reflector Mage. But it's also the sort of thing where if you stumble a bit at the blue-white flash mid-range deck, the one that Rob is playing, it has a bigger chance of being able to finish off the game. Though in this case, it does not look like it's working.
So it looks like Neil's up to 5 energy.
And he's got a lot of ways to get to
and he
number
has
6.
a lot of choices.
Wow, Clues and Aetherworks Marvel? He broke it.
Yep, so away goes a clue, counter for the tracker, get 1 more energy, and now Neil has enough energy to activate that Marvel once more, and that is exactly what he's going to do. All right.
He's clearing space for Emrakul.
Yep, spin the wheel.
Please meet at the red gathering point.
So he did not find one, but he found another Marvel instead, which is going to provide him 2 more energy.
Red gathering point.
Can he get enough energy to spin it again?
He can sacrifice Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot.
Yeah, he does have 3 mana, yep.
And that will give him 4 energy, 1 from the trigger and 3 from the Puzzle Knot. So, yeah, Neil's right back at it. He can go ahead and spin the Marvel and look for Emrakul without any delay here.
You know what Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot is like? It's like when you're playing the lottery and you just get one of those tickets that say you can play again.
Yes. Yeah, it's like when you hit one of those off Marvel, it feels like you just got a rebate.
Yep.
You didn't win, but you also didn't lose.
All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's a Demon of Dark Schemes.
Demon of Dark Schemes.
So that's going to give -2/-2 to everything, which
Doesn't look particularly exciting on this board.
it can generate a bunch of energy whenever one of Rob's creatures dies, getting an energy. Because right now Neil's not losing anything.
What do you think is the reason we haven't seen very much Demon of Dark Schemes, just in general?
I think at 6 mana it really competes with Noxious Gearhulk, and Noxious Gearhulk is generally a more reliable card.
Sure.
On the other hand, Neo just plays both, so I guess he's figured out that he's got room.
All right, so this match looks like it's going to still be a while. In the meantime, let's go back to our main match. Once again, this is Eric Froelich versus Hao Shenghuan. This is, both players are currently 6-0, and Eric is up a game. All right, so it looks like Huang developing a board of Thraben Inspector into Thalia's Lieutenant. This is not exactly usually when you want to play Thalia's Lieutenant, but it does provide a little bit of a buff.
And this is more the start that Huang is looking for, especially since it looks like he's got Revolutionary Rebuff in hand, so now he can attack, leave up mana for Clue or Rebuff, and be in a pretty reasonable spot.
So I'm continuing to chip away at Eric's life total.
Justin Hedgebeth, please check with Lost in Town.
And now that these players have moved post-board, Luis, who do you think it favors?
Eric has
we're about to get buffed. Hold on, let me interrupt you. So Liliana trying to make an appearance, but instead got buffed. There's a Revolutionary Rebuff. A conditional counterspell of sorts, but does manage to take care of that Liliana there.
Yeah, in the early part of the game, it does what it needs to do, even if it's not the intrinsically strongest card. And playing 1-drop, 2-drop on the play and having Rebuff up is going to be effective this game.
How necessary do you think something like Revolutionary Rebuff is to these white-blue flash decks?
It's kind of a concession to not being able to beat Ishkanah very easily. Because again, Ishkanah is the most common target for Revolutionary Rebuff. It's why the card is in the deck. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't surprise me that they're forced to go down that road, even though if something like Clash of Wills was legal, that would be much more enticing.
So Eric here, you're no longer concerned about that rebuff. Instead, he's going to jam that Mind Rack Demon.
And here's
Does
where
he get Delirium?
It looks like he's got Enchantment,
Land Planeswalker.
So no Delirium yet. So Huang can actually get 4 damage in by doing nothing.
Also, he's at 11, so he could, this could be a liability.
Also, Huang has, looks like I saw a Key to the City in hand, so that could also deal a significant amount of extra damage.
Oh snap! There it is. All right, so he's going to activate the Key, making the Lieutenant unblockable, and just getting in there with the Lieutenant. And this also makes sure that Eric cannot do anything about taking 4 damage from this demon.
This is going to put Eric on a pretty quick clock here.
Okay, so Eric with a To the Slaughter.
And he's doing it in response to the demon's trigger, so he can hit Delirium, because that would be the 4th type. Wong deciding whether he wants to sacrifice the Inspector or flip inside a Rebel and then sacrifice the Rebel.
So he's flipping the Rebel, yeah, and the Inspector is going to hit the bin. And that is going to protect Eric from that demon.
And that worked out all right for Eric. To the Slaughter is not the most impressive card against a deck full of 1-drops, but it actually did what it needed to do in this particular instance.
Is it To the Slaughter in his main deck, or?
Looks like Eric has 1 in the main and 1 in the sideboard.
Okay.
And I think having 1 in his deck right now is more a function of just not having enough slots that you would really want it. The other difference is it does actually go after Gideon, and if he thinks Wong is siding in Gideon's, of which Wong has 4 in his sideboard, then To the Slaughter could be an effective way to fight Gideon.
A Traverse Wald for Eric. So Key to the City is going to untap. Wong's going to go ahead and pay 2 to draw a card for it, and then he draws for his turn as well.
Key to the City looking pretty good here. Letting Wong trade cards in and then deal a bunch of excess damage with unblockable humans. I mean, it's the kind of card that I like as a 1-of. It's expensive mana-wise and card-wise, but it does get you there eventually.
Well, it's tough. A lot of times these decks have a really hard time with things like Ishkanai. I mean, you mentioned it. Even the Magmatic Chasm strategy, this is just another way to kind of deal with it, right?
Yeah, it's the colorless Magmatic Chasm is how it's known.
Oh, yes. Yes, how could I forget? Everybody calls it that. Another land for him, and looks like that was a Declaration in Stone. This opens the way there for Juan to attack with all his team once more.
And what Wong did was a pretty big tell. He didn't pump inside a Rebel with his last 2 mana, which would indicate to me, if I was Eric, that he has Revolutionary Rebuff in hand. That's the most likely card that he would have based on leaving 2 mana up here.
So what do you do in the face of that, though? Oh, this is an artifact? There you go. That's exactly something you can do.
Oh, yeah. Better read it. But yes, it is an artifact.
Yep. And Wong has to say, okay, yeah, Revolutionary Rebuff is not countering this one.
That was the best play Eric could assemble right there.
That was very good. It also manages to take down the Rabble. All right, so Key to the City. And the Lieutenant manages to get in. Obviously, the Gearhulk cannot block it.
Chipping away at 2 at a time.
I mean, Eric's down to 6.
Eric does technically win this race, or Wong technically wins this race, especially since he'll presumably start drawing humans off this Key to the City. But if Eric has more interaction, it's getting to the point where a Revolutionary Rebuff, if that is Wong's last card, is just not going to be enough to counter anything.
Well, Eric is cracking a clue. What do you make of that if you're Wong? Are you happy about that? You definitely want him to play something to your rebuff, but he knows, right?
I do like that on one side of the board because that increases the likelihood that rebuff is good enough. And I think Eric may have had Ishkanah on 6 mana and just wants to wait till 7 to play her.
So once again, Juan gets to draw another card there, thanks to Key to the City. Let's see what he drew. I think he just found a Reflector Mage.
Reflector Maging Noxious Gearhulk, generally not the key to victory.
All right, so Thraben Inspector first. This gets him a clue, and also a counter on the Lieutenant.
Thraben Inspector is like the perfect card. Cruise Smuggler's Copter gets you a clue, is a human. It just does it all. It counts as an artifact.
It's such a team player in this deck. It's a team player in a lot of decks, honestly. All right, so in comes the Lieutenant once more. Is in Quagmire attempting to block.
That'll induce the Key to the City, which it might be the case that Wong has actual spells in hand that he's going to have to discard.
Yeah, and he actually just discarded a Reflector Mage. But that does drop Eric down to 3. And one more hit from this Lieutenant is game.
So it's interesting. Eric has, it looks like a Grasp of Darkness in hand. And if he kind of wants to play Ishkana and then play Grasp, but he has to be worried about this rebuff. So leading with Grasp makes a lot of sense, even though it doesn't force Wong to commit to using the key first.
Yep, and that does take care. Should take care of the Lieutenant. And away it goes. And there's Ishkana.
Does Wong have it?
Oh, get buffed.
Yep, he
does
does
have it.
And so this is a spot where I'm very confident Eric knew that was the most likely card in Wong's hand and is just fine playing the Spider into it. I've played a lot of Magic with and against Eric, and I'm sure he had picked up on that.
Yeah.
He was just in a spot where he had 3 other cards in hand and just could not spend the turn doing nothing. He's willing to just trade it off.
This Key to the City is doing a lot of work for Huang, actually. Continues to draw 2 cards, and that was a lot of discipline actually holding on to that Revolutionary rebuff because he did discard that Reflector Mage to Key to the City.
Yeah, and Revolutionary rebuff against an opponent with 7 mana, it doesn't seem like it's going to be that useful, but it turns out it did
Worked out very well right
counter
there.
Ishkana.
So let's see what Huang found. He still has that clue that he hasn't cracked yet.
2 Thali's Lieutenants attack for 3. Bam. Eric's still under a lot of pressure. Being at 3 life and facing down Key to the City is tough, because Key to the City means that all the cards that matter from Eric's side of the board now are just removal spells. Blockers are just no longer relevant.
I think Huang has a Gideon.
Yeah, and that means that he's actually threatening lethal next turn, because he's able to emblem Gideon and then attack with the 2/2 Thraben Inspector, or Key to the City to Gideon, either one.
Yeah, so Gideon coming down, bringing that Knight. All right, and Eric down a 2.
Though Noxious Gearhulk can pick off Gideon thanks to Menace.
So what are you trying to draw here of your Eric, or what sequence of events do you need to get out of this? It looks like the Key to the City has been just such a pain for him.
Really just more removal spells, especially instant speed removal, where he can let Wong use Key to the City, then kill whatever creature's unblocked.
Yeah.
Eric has Planeswalker land, enchantment, instant sorcery creature. So if Eric had an Emrakul, he could actually play Emrakul the Promised End, and that might put him in a spot where he's able to kill all of Wong's creatures.
Well, that grapple with a pass feels a little desperate, but let's see what he can find.
Yeah, it's not going to be enough to find an answer here. But if Eric has a piece of instant speed removal, he can presumably live for another turn.
All right, so Liliana, the last hope.
Well, this also works, because without Gideon, then the Thraben Inspector can't get emblemed and is no longer lethal. So Wong can attack with Thraben Inspector. Remember, the Knight got Liliana, so Wong has one power in play. Let's see if he can find a way to make it 2. He's got a lot of ways in his deck. It feels like he has it.
It feels like he did. He's putting aside 2 mana. It looks like a Thalia's Lieutenant.
Well, if he's
cracking a clue, so maybe not.
That's a good start for Eric. I mean, that means he does not immediately have it, at least.
Right, usually the worst feeling is when they immediately just tap out for it. Like, they definitely had it. But in this case, yeah, the Raven Inspector just getting in there for 1.
One critical piece here, too, is that Eric was forced to attack Gideon with Noxious Gearhulk last turn, which gave Wong another turn. So the Gearhulk is not lethal because Eric wasn't able to attack with it last turn.
And a Smuggler's Copter to follow up.
It's also funny that if Noxious Gearhulk were to go to the graveyard, Eric has a multitude of ways to bring it back, and that would be great for him. But with it in play, he's not able to rebuy it, because it would do exactly what he wants right now.
How many Gearhulks does he have?
He just has the 1, and it gains him a bit of life, and puts a big creature into play, but he's not quite there.
So Gearhulk attacking once more. Dropping Wong down to 5, but Eric is at 1. And Ishkana and Revolutionary Rebuff Protection too.
So Eric is now in a spot where if he has an instant speed removal and Huang does not have a rebuff, Eric probably wins because he can just kill whatever gets keyed to the city. So if Eric's last card is Murder or Grasp of Darkness, I think he's in good shape. If it's not, though, he's just going to die to key to the city on any of Huang's creatures, assuming that it's not the one that got Liliana.
And it looks like Huang is taking an opportunity to discard whatever he didn't want there at the end of the turn. This is going to let him see 2 cards this turn. So draw 1 for key, 1 for his turn.
And Revolutionary Rebuff, clearly the card he's looking for because that would win him the game on the spot. But even if he doesn't find it, he's likely going to have to go for it with Key to the City here. At which point Eric will be able to present lethal.
Has Eric turned this game around? It looks like he's been playing from behind for so long.
He might be. He's 1 card. I mean, it depends what his last card is. Both players very anxious to find out what that card is.
This is nerve-wracking. Mind-wracking, even. Don't give me that look.
There's not enough room in the booth for 2 people making heinously bad jokes.
Look.
It could be argued there's not enough room for 1, but I go there anyway.
To be fair, I also gave you that look multiple times for the broadcast, so I really shouldn't complain. All right, so here's the action. Key to the city.
Eric, for those of you who watched Pro Tour Kaladesh, Eric recently had eye surgery. He had a eye patch on at the Pro Tour. Now he does not, but he has a magnifying glass to help him to look at close things.
Oh, and it is a Grasp of Darkness.
It's a Grasp of Darkness that may put Eric in a spot where he's able... A real-life magnifying glass was just spotted. I told Eric that if there was a clue in play, he had to use the magnifying glass to look at the clue, but he unfortunately declined.
Oh my god. Did he really? That would have been so great.
And now Eric is going to be able to swing with everything. You activate Ishkana, Noxious Gearhulk is lethal by itself. I think Eric has managed to pull it out, having the last Grasp of Darkness as his last card. That was exactly what he needed.
Is there any card that Eric's really worried about from Huang's side of the battlefield at this point?
Not really, because Huang has, I think, a Declaration in Stone, and he could Declaration to Ishkana, but Huang just doesn't have enough blockers no matter how you slice it, right? Because well, actually that's not true. Adding the Thraben Inspector to the board means if you Declaration Ishkana, and then you can double block Noxious Gearhulk, but then now Eric has Hissing Quagmires, and those can start attacking as well.
That's true. There's like 2 left there. Yeah, there's 2.
It looks like Eric's going to be able to send in 2 if he really needs to.
Man, that's exactly what's like he's counting right now. God, what a tough spot. And Huang has so many ways to pump up that Lieutenant that one turn it got, and even the Thraben Inspector.
Yeah, there were a lot of outs that Huang had, and it turned out he just did not hit one.
Yeah, so he's going to stone the Ishkana. Yep, and away she goes. This also gets Eric another clue. Yep, and it looks like Eric's just sending in those 2 Quagmires.
I would have been very surprised if Eric did not see the on-the-board kill here.
Yeah, activate one, activate the other. Team. And Eric Froelich pulls this one out. It looks like he was playing from behind for so long, and he manages to pull it out. Congratulations to him. He's moving on to 7-0 here at GP Denver.
The best start you could hope for. Minus using the magnifying glass to look at the clue. That would have been slightly better. Eric overcome with excitement there.
Looking back and seeing Neil Oliver versus Rob Pisano. See what's going on over here. Tireless Tracker on one side, Thalia and a Reflector Mage on the other.
Looks like Rob's doing a pretty good job of pressuring Neil here. Though Neil is at 28 life. How is Neil at 28?
How are you at 28?
Oh.
Okay, there you go. That makes more sense.
Or 18, it's about the same thing. Sometimes when we go to a live look-in, we have to try to figure out...
Spring Sage Ritual, suddenly you gain 10 life.
Figure out where exactly the life totals come from. Okay, Neil's now at 13. This is actually bad news for Neil because life total's dropping in these large increments every turn.
In increments of 10.
Is Neil at 8 now? Is he at 3?
That's 4 p.m. Legacy players. Your pairings are being posted at the
Sorry, he's cracking that clue, getting a counter on the Tireless Tracker.
Please find your seats.
Also, this is game 3 for the players. What happens? We got to take a peek very briefly at these two decks pre-board. Any expectations for what happens post-board?
The blue-white deck has a few more answers, a few more counter spells, and that generally is good for them. But I think Neil's deck is pretty well set up to fight this matchup.
Neil's deck looks really sweet, actually. I do like the notion of just like, well, let's take the best two things from these two decks and just jam them together. Vessel and Nascency making an appearance for Neil. All right, and Stasis Snare on the stack.
That's pretty good for Rob, because that means that the Tireless Tracker no longer brick walls Rob's attackers, and Rob may be able to force through enough damage here.
Let's see if there's anything that Neil can do about this.
Update from the floor, Paul Chian, 7-0 with Blue-White Flash, so he's playing a deck that's very much in his wheelhouse. He really does like decks like that, and so I don't believe he's lost any games.
With today?
Mm-hmm.
At all?
I don't believe so.
Jesus. That's crazy. That's awesome.
It's especially surprising, too.
Oh, my God.
Well, it's just hard to...
Be excited for him.
It's just hard to go 8-0 in games. That's all I was saying.
Okay, okay.
What did you think?
I'm sure that's what it was. Thalia and Reflector Mage can now get in there because the Tireless Tracker is gone now.
Neil's going to have some good plays over the next few turns, though. His Natural State in hand, so he can kill that Stasis Snare for only 1 mana. He has untapping with a full grip of cards and 6 mana, so even though Neil is at 8, he is facing down only 2 creatures, and they're not particularly big. Neil actually has Demon of Dark Schemes in play, or in hand as well.
He has it in hand, yeah.
And he can play that and kill the Thalia, though it will still enter the battlefield tapped.
Does Neil have any energy? Because Demon of Dark Schemes is black, black, black.
He has a Swamp in hand, so that would be his 6
right.
mana.
There you go.
And Neil looks like he's doing pretty well. He's energetic. He's into it, if that's what you're asking.
Right, so instead he's going to transgress the mind and take a look at what's going on in Rob's hand.
And this shows that Neil has a strong hand because he's leading with a transgress that doesn't affect the board, knowing he's got enough action to play that he can spend 2 mana on this card.
Looks like Rob is really not happy about this transgress. Can he do anything about it?
He might have Revolutionary Rebuff in hand. Oh, no. Oh, wow. That's actually going to be a very big swing. I have not seen an Awakened Scatter the Winds for quite some time.
All right. So Scatter the Winds.
So
countering that and also bring another creature along with it.
Yeah, that's actually going to be really bad news for Neil, because now all of a sudden from going from it looked like a pretty good spot, he's now facing down lethal, and with Thalia in play, it's going to be hard for him to assemble any blockers.
At the red gathering point. On-demand event. Commander.
So down comes the Swamp.
Please meet at the red gathering point.
Also, Demon of the Dark Schemes cannot kill that land either. Grasp of Darkness and Natural State. So he gets the Tireless Tracker back too.
Unfortunately for Neil, because of the way his mana is produced, he had to play the Swamp before playing the Natural State on the Tracker, because he needed to kill Thalia before Tracker came back, otherwise it would have been tapped.
Yeah, and so now he's going to put the Tracker in front. And Tracker does take down that land, but he's still taking damage from the Reflector Mage, and Rob continues to add to his side of the battlefield with a Smuggler's Copter. And a Thraben Inspector. So the Demon of Dark Schemes, a Marvel, also an Emrakul in hand.
So Neil's almost there on a bunch of things. He looks like he's 1 type or 1 land short of casting Emrakul. He can play Marvel but not have enough energy to use it. And he can play Demon of Dark Schemes, which will kill the Thraben Inspector. That'll also leave a 5/5 flyer. So it seems like Demon is a fairly appealing play here, given the options he has.
Demon is also another way for him to start getting energy as well, given that he does have that Marvel in hand. Oh, wow. Spell Shrivel?
So Rob's any creature short of presenting lethal here.
Oh, and he slams it. In comes everybody.
Well,
and
that was
handshake.
fast.
That was very fast.
That
he
wasn't
knew,
sped up
he
either.
knew exactly that he just needed this one. He needed one pilot to actually finish that.
Yeah, and Spell Shrivel doing what it does best against controlling decks that are just tapping out for big things.
Great stuff. So Rapisano moves on to 7-0 here at Grand Prix Denver. Oliver still with a really good start, but picking up his first loss. Still definitely on a run to maybe, Neil is a Grand Prix champion, hopefully running back